Ho there, traveller. It's not often I see people journeying across the plain of stone faces. I have wares to sell you. Look at these beautiful, elegant masks. Oh, you know you want them, and one of them can be yours. All I require is a price. You agree? Good. For this mask, I desire your delicious name. Hello and welcome to The Mask Maker and You. This is part of an ongoing series of deep dives into various aspects of the board game Kingdom Death Monster. Today we're looking at one of the final settlement locations which from the core game, which we've not talked about yet. This is the Butcher's crafting location, and it is known as the Mask Maker. So, how do you get yourself the Mask Maker, you may be wondering? Let's take a look, shall we? Step 1, kill yourself a butcher. We've got ours here. Looks pretty dead. You could give it another kick if you want to be sure, but I think it is. Once you have slain a butcher, you gain this mask, but you only get it if you succeed high enough on the rewards roll. You need to get a 13 plus on a d10, which of course you can't do normally, but you do get to add numbers to this. One of them is you get to add the butcher's level to the result. So the first butcher you kill, you get a +1, meaning a roll of a 10 could become 11. That's still not good enough, but it's a step. The level 2 will give you +2, and the level 3 will of course give you +3, but the level 3 turns up very late in the campaign. It turns out there is also another way to get a hold of it a little bit earlier than that, without having to either make this roll or achieve this particular roll here for the specific level 3 plus butcher. And that is via a death blow on the Furious Scrag hit location. So the butcher is traditionally resistant to the point of being immune to critical wounds. In fact, the original designs of the butcher had 0 critical wound locations. However, in one particular content creation campaign, the butcher was slain with a thrown founding stone, even though a founding stone can't wound that particular butcher because it requires a lantern critical wound result to be on the card. In honour and tribute to this mistake, the card Furious Scrag, which is the one that was hit, was updated and it was given a critical wound location. Now, if you do manage to deathblow the butcher here, then you will get +2 to your result of the butcher's rewards, meaning killing the level 1 butcher gives you a total of +3, and that gives you a 10% chance of getting the Forsaken Mask and getting it quite early. It's a pretty fun little moment. I think it is sweet that the butcher is almost entirely immune to critical wounds, but isn't quite. And I think it's nice to see a tribute to the community in a card like the Furious Scrag. So that's how you're going to get this. That's why you may not have seen this settlement location. It takes a lot of play, some fortunate results, everything coming together, all really working for it to manage to get it. When you do, you'll have this, the Forsaken Mask. Right, so this mask has had a revision. Previously, its older version effectively gave you a second activation in your act, and was very, very powerful. It was so powerful that it was a bit of a dilemma whether you actually sacrificed the Forsaken Mask to make the Mask Maker location or not. These days, as we can see, it's an item mask metal with the other keyword. It adds you 2 armor points to your head location. It's unique, irreplaceable, and an accessory. And it has the problem that during the aftermath you run off into the darkness and never be seen again, which will, of course, because this is irreplaceable, like, technically archive the Forsaken Mask if you are looking to play, strictly. But the main thing you're going to do when you get a Forsaken Mask is you're not going to stick it on and run around with it unless you're using it in the very last battle of the entire campaign for some reason. Instead, you're going to archive this item to build the Mask Maker location, which is how you get access to these masks here. It's also worth noting there's another way you can get masks. If you happen to run into the mysterious Mask Maker, which is Hunt Event 53, you can gain a random mask in exchange for a price. That price might be a gear and all of your survival, just a gear card from your gear grid, or it may cost you your survivor's name for whatever inscrutable reasons that the Mask Maker desires it. The other thing about the Mask Maker is if you have the Legend Caller ability, which can be gained by the Principal Conviction, then once a lifetime, that Legend Caller survivor can, instead of rolling on a random hunt event, can use 53 as their result and get their mask. So you've got 2 ways to get these masks, the first being via the Forsaken Mask and the second one being via the Mask Salesman, and you can, through picking the right principal during the Principal Conviction timeline event, story event, you can get a random mask from these 6 options. So there are ways to experience this content that don't require you to kill the Butcher with the death blow and manage to roll that 13 plus. Now, should we take a look at these masks? Here we go. Right, so don't ask why KDM Simulator has 2 copies of the Forsaken Mask. It does. There we go. Alright, so we're going to start with the White Lion Mask. This costs an Endeavour, a Shimmering Mane, 6 bone, and an organ. And before we get into its specific ability, let's talk about the things that every single mask has in common with the White Lion Mask, and that is its armor points, location, keywords, and abilities. So all of the masks that you will craft are an item, a mask. They have the bone keyword and they have the other keyword. Bone keyword has some relevance with bone synergies. The other keyword excludes saviors from being able to wear these. So what we've got is also on the abilities, they're unique. So you can only have one of each specific mask in your settlement. You can't have 4 survivors running around cosplaying as antelopes. It would be fun, but no. You just have to make do with having one of each. They're also irreplaceable, so if the survivor wearing them dies, is lost, you lose the item as well. You have to recraft it. And they are an accessory, meaning that despite them having armor points to the head, they can still be worn with armor, with a helmet. So you can strap on your leather mask and then pull a phoenix mask on top of that. Or, if you really want to get a bit meta, you can wear a Gormant mask with a man mask on top, so you could be a dude wearing the face of another dude. And also dressed as a gimp. Anyway, let's talk about the White Lion Mask's specific ability. So this, if you have 2 green affinities in your gear grid and you're insane, all of these masks require you to be insane with one exception, then you can spend an activation to lose all your survival and gain that many +1 strength tokens. So this should be familiar because it's a bad version of the power potion. The power potion lets you activate and gain strength tokens equal to your number of green affinities in your gear grid. This one costs you all survival. Now, survival is one of the most valuable things a survivor has, because survival can be a dodge, it can be helping someone else stand up, it can be a dash, it can be a second attack, it's a whole load of things. Like that second activation could instead be turned into a block off a shield, it can let you dash out of range of a monster, etc. So survival is incredibly useful and powerful. On top of that, green affinities are a generally defensive slanted form of affinity. You'll find most green affinities appear on stuff with like monster grease is a good example, leather armor is another one. They're very defensively orientated, and gear grids like that typically want to spend their survival on positioning, dodging and blocking rather than not having any survival at all for a pile of strength tokens. So this is really for someone who's playing a highly offensive slanted build, and the problem there is, well, if you have no survival you can't surge. So do you want to surge, or do you want a big pile of strength tokens? Most offensively orientated damage dealers are going to prefer to be able to surge. Now, there is People of the Sun where you don't have access to surge, you have a different ability instead, and losing that might be okay in exchange. Likewise, archers may be alright with sacrificing their ability to surge and dash in order to just fire once a turn with a big powerful shot, but all of these just feel kind of suboptimal. So for my money, the White Lion Mask is a bit duff. It's not super great. I'm really not interested in crafting it for its abilities. I would craft this for the legendary monster you get to hunt. We'll talk about those at the end of this briefly. Right, next up, as we have these in the order that they turned up on the simulator, we have the Phoenix Mask. So the Phoenix Mask costs an Endeavour, small feathers, 6 bone and 4 organs. It has the same keywords, armor points and abilities as the White Lion Mask. It requires 4 red affinities in your gear grid, and you'll notice all of these masks don't supply affinities, so that's an entire at least 2 directions that you've lost if you stick one of these in the corner to try and fill in the slot. So 4 red affinities is a really tall ask. And if you're insane, you may dodge 1 additional time per round. The Phoenix Mask has the same problem that the White Lion Mask has, but kind of the opposite. Red affinities tend to be slanted towards offensive builds. Red Charm's very a good example. White Lion Armor is another one. Typically, if a gear grid has 4 red affinities in it, it's not really looking to dodge, it's looking to hit things really hard. Even the king of affinities, Cycloid Scale Armor, which has a prismatic ability that lets all your affinities count as any colour, it's not really a defensive orientated armour set. It doesn't have a lot of armour points, so a Phoenix Mask, even for that, is just not super great. Now, 2 dodges around can keep you out of trouble if you get in a bad position, you get caught off guard and the monsters manage to get to you instead of your designated frontline punching bag. So that is some value to it, but you have to work so hard to get these affinities active that I don't really typically want the Phoenix Mask, again, outside of having it to go on the legendary hunt. I've tried a lot of different builds, and ultimately I don't need the dodges on the builds that have all of these red affinities. the same as with the White Lion mask, but inverted. So I think the Phoenix mask, while not as situational and weak as the White Lion mask, is still pretty underwhelming. Now, if we do get to a point in the future, like say with some form of bone orientated armor, because bone tends to be very heavily lent into red affinities, we might see the Phoenix mask rise up to a new spot, a new use. But ultimately, it's very difficult to make this work. Very, very difficult. So I would put this as like the second worst mask, ahead of the White Lion mask. Okay, next up we have the Man mask. The Man mask costs an endeavour, a skull, 6 bone and 4 organs. Use same selection of keywords and abilities and armor points. This one is if you have a red and a green affinity in your gear grid and you're insane, you may spend negative attribute tokens in place of survival. Okay, so the more you play, the more you may run into negative attribute tokens. And now that we've had the Gambler's Chest introduce knowledges, there's even wider range of areas where you can get negative attribute tokens, kind of through design rather by accident. So the Man mask is one of those situational masks. Against certain foes, it's going to be absolutely fantastic, like against the Kingsman, level 2 higher. Instead of having to deal with Silent Him, you just go, that's nice, thanks for the survival every turn, bud. And you just ignore the Kingsman's demands that you do all that bookkeeping to keep a track of how many movement tokens, negative movement tokens you have, and you slap him around the face, just being a stupid, silly accountant dressed up in bone armour, which is also his skin. Anyway, Man mask situational. Some showdowns it's going to be amazing, some showdowns it's going to do kind of nothing at all. Some survivors will make incredible use out of it to have a big pile of extra survival. Others will just be like, oh great, I've just stuck this mask on top of my face. Yeah, alright, I got more armour, fantastic. So I think this is fine. I think this is absolutely fine. You'd quite easily fit it into a gear grid, and in addition to it providing the armor points, it will occasionally let you get a little bit of extra survival and ignore some negative attribute tokens. So this one's quite good, and the crafting cost involving a skull I think is fairly affordable. So I'd call this one sort of middle of the road, but also it's about it's the third most powerful mask. Our next mask is the really cool looking God mask, which every time I look at it, I kind of see a King Gorm. You see, like there's the Gorm head with its like tongue hanging down, and I realise this is probably meant to represent its jaw, but it just makes me think of the Gorm every time. I don't know which god this is meant to represent. I do think it's a really cool piece of artwork, and it's a lovely sculpt, like the God mask is gorgeous. Okay, usual keywords, abilities, armor points. This one, if you have 2 rainbows in your gear grid, so red, 2 red, 2 green, 2 blue, at the start of your act, if you're insane, you gain +1 survival. As we talked about back with the White Lion, survival is amazing. Before we get into this one costs 1 endeavour, 1 founding stone, 6 bone and 4 organs. Hence the founding stone pictured right there. These are all each of the individual crafting costs in the background. It's fantastic mask. Now it's a real stretch at times. You do have to work to make this happen, but there's plenty of armor sets that get you close to, if not all of the way to having these affinities. Lantern armor is super close, just needs a couple more gear cards, and it has space to fit the God mask in, for example, and also has earplugs, so it helps protect your insanity even more, to keep you insane for longer. Survival can do anything you need it to. It can be extra movement, it can be extra activations, it can be extra attacks, it can be a dodge every turn. It can be a block every turn via surge. The world is your oyster when you've got spare survival. There's even some neat stuff like the Spediculous Silk Boots have an ability that once a round lets you spend one survival to gain 2 insanity. So with the God Mask and Silk Armour has a ton of different affinities of all colours, so it's really easy to get the God Mask working with Silk Armour. Yeah, you're even keeping it running. So you name it. Do you want to be running this on an offensive survivor? Superb, They can surge every turn, not have to worry about it. Do you want it on your tank? Well, amazing. Some extra armor points to the head, and now they can surge every turn to block, or they can dodge and block, and they only drain their survival a bit, like at half the speed they would normally. Do you want to wear this on a support survivor who is just going to manipulate the monster by activating the silk turban and also a cat eye circlet? You can, you've got. This is just a really powerful mask. It's got a really high and stringent requirement to get it working, but that is not insurmountable. That is not impossible. You certainly can do that. There's a lot of armor sets that get you there. You don't even have to build custom mixed grids or put it on a crystal skin survivor in order to achieve what you're looking for. So I really like the God Mask, but I rate it at the 3rd best mask. Next up is the best mask. Okay, so the Death Mask is a teensy bit different from all the other masks. First of all, I don't know what this depicts, but I love it. I love its little tiny ears. I wonder if it's like an Oblivion mosquito, because it's got quite insectile elements to it. But I'd love to see the answer at some point in the future. A wonderful design. My 2nd favourite after the God Mask in design. This is my 3rd favourite. I love the little eyes. Anyway, what this one does is, contrary to all the others, it asks you to not have any affinities in your gear grid. So you can have half affinities, but you must not connect them up correctly. And if you do that, you get +4 luck and you suffer -4 to all severe injury rolls. This is worth the trade-off. If you are relatively experienced at managing monster aggro and you have a dedicated frontline tank or dual bruisers, you can have a survivor who is using the Death Mask and staying really safe. You can use this with a bow. You can just have a nice, good, long-range bow and combine it with a bowmaster who's got deadly 2. You're just going all the way to the bank. That -4 on all severe injury rolls is a very scary price, but it's a fair price and it's one that you can play around. You can, you could stick all of this on somebody who's wearing a full Gormit suit with the regeneration suit attached to it, full Gormit armor, regeneration suit, so that they can recover from the severe injuries they do take. You could combine this with stuff that gives you extra bonuses to severe injury rolls to mitigate the worst of it, like tough. But even if you're not doing any of that, this mask is the one you want to get from the mask salesman in Lantern Year 1, and you're going to have a really good time generating a lot of resources and scoring easy wounds with no reprisal. It is super powerful. It costs the 1 endeavour, 6 bone and 4 organs as everything else, but you also have to sacrifice a population, so you'll have to lose 1 survivor, your choice who, in order to manufacture the mask if you're constructing it from the mask maker. Incredibly powerful, and it is really nice how this gives a whole bunch of affinityless gear cards a really good home, because there's some great stuff that just sometimes the lack of affinities on it can make it hard to fit into gear grids, but you don't care here, not when you got the Death Mask. Wonderful, a wonderful card. Just a centerpiece of most campaigns it turns up in, and easily the best mask. Our final mask then is the Antelope Mask. So the Antelope Mask costs an endeavour, a pelt, 6 bone and 4 organ. You may be noticing a pattern with these crafting costs. And if you have 2 red and 2 blue affinities in your gear grid, then at the start of your act, if you are insane, you gain +1 knight, one like whole extra movement. I cannot overstress, like, if luck is the king of attacking, movement is the absolute ruler of the battlefield. Good movement, lots of movement, good positioning. There are so many things that you can do with it. Like, so many things. It is very, very... I can't overstate how good they are. Let's just talk of a couple of applications. So, you get this at the start of your act. If you have a cumbersome weapon, suddenly you're able to move and use the cumbersome weapon normally, because you can spend this to move, and then you've got your normal move and activation to attack with. So that lets you move with the bone club. Sweet. But also bows. Most bows, vast majority of them, are cumbersome. This now lets you scoot and shoot, which, as any armchair general will tell you, artillery's ability to scoot and shoot, or shoot and scoot, I should say, is amazing. So suddenly you're able to shoot the monster and then move to a place where you're going to be safe, or you can move into a place where you're just on the edge of range and shoot. It is so good, this, and the affinities are not difficult to achieve, not with any kind of armor set. There's very few that you can't get this kind of affinities with fairly easily, especially as, like, we're usually looking to make 2 blue affinities on a offensive bow orientated gear grid anyway. So I cannot like understress how much I love the Antelope Mask, and I think it is the second best mask in the location, ahead of the God Mask and behind the Death Mask, because of how good movement is. If you want, one of my favourite things is you get the Dancer armor, which comes in the Lion Knight expansion, and that is a hybrid armor set that you have to unlock by going to see, I think it's the Seamstress. It's one of Sam, Rand and Ash, who are the 3 scribes who travel with the Lion Knight and kind of seem to be actually in charge, or more senior than the Lion Knight. Anyway, one of them lets you craft this Dancer armor, and it's a hybrid armor set that uses bits from the Rawhide set and the Phoenix armor and other bits and pieces. It's not in KDM Simulator yet, otherwise I'd be showing it to you. It gives you even more movement. It gives you a movement after you've attacked. So suddenly you could move, attack, move with Dancer armor, and Dancer armor like gets you towards these affinities as well. So the Antelope Mask is amazing. Tons of applications, offensively, defensively, just preserving survival totals because you don't have to dash as much as you need to ensure that you can attack. It's also really good with any kind of armor set that has that monster movement attack. So just as an example, the charge from the Phoenix armor. Yeah, really great amount of extra strength when you charge, but sometimes you have to charge in a straight line, and so if you can't end your movement within reach of the monster, be that adjacent or if you've got a reach weapon within 2, it doesn't matter. You can't use the charge effectively, but now you get to move to position and then spend your normal activation to do the charge, so you're way more likely to get to do that. And it's the same with Pounce from the White Lion armor and Slam on the Phoenix armor, on the Screaming Antelope armor. It is such a flexible and powerful thing, so I cannot understress how good it is. On top of all of that, we have the legendary monsters. So as long as you have the relevant mask, White Lion Mask, Antelope Mask, Phoenix Mask, you can activate here and lead your hunting party to a legendary monster. Right, and you can find the rules for those in the Legendary Monster Story event. We're not going to go into this in huge detail. If people are super interested, maybe a long way down the line we can talk about fighting each of the legendaries. But let's have a look first of all, just a brief overview. Obviously, there's be spoilers for the legendary monsters, so if you're not interested in that, if you want it to go blind, I would simply say make sure you're comfortable fighting the level 3 version of whichever monster you're going after, and if you are, then go for it and have a good time, because these are level 4 versions of those monsters. Right, let's take a look. Okay, here we are. This is the page for the legendary monsters. The top left one, Beast of Sorrow, is unlocked through a different set of circumstances, so we're not going to look at that one here. So instead, ours are the Great Golden Cat, the Mad Steed, and the Golden-Eyed King of 1,000 Years. As I mentioned moments earlier, if you can't tackle a level 3 version of these, then maybe it's time to gear up a little bit more and get more comfortable fighting the level 3 versions, because each one of these is a level 3 version but with a bit more going on. Now, I think that the legendary monsters are one of the really fun parts of Kingdom Death's design. It's a place where the Team Death and Adam, the designers, they get to mix things up. They get to put extra things onto a normal version of the creature that you wouldn't normally see. And that can make for a really fun and unique experience. I was honestly disappointed when we didn't have a legendary Crimson Crocodile or a Ballad Shop trio of Smog Singers. You know, there's no extra legendary monsters in any of those. In fact, the only place where we got another legendary monster right now is in the Dung Beetle Knight expansion with Tom, the Old Master, hence the name Tom. So, Great Golden Cat. This is one of the really interesting things is you have this custom deck list, and so they have a very limited number of moves that they're going to work their way through in addition to all of the traits that they have. But you don't get to touch this because these legendaries use the life trait. So instead of removing cards from the AI deck, you reduce the life total number instead, which means at no point do you ever get to eliminate what they're doing. So they're going to move through the same routine of set moves, but you may not know what order they're going to do them in. The Great Golden Cat's unusual because it gets like this trample over here, super cool little extra thing, because that's from the Screaming Antelope. It gets top of the food chain from the Golden-Eyed King of 1,000 Years, from the Phoenix I should say. And we can also see just like the levels on these monsters are really intimidating. That matters for stuff that uses the monster level, like for example Terrifying Roar, and Cunning. So yeah, pretty exciting. You'll also see extra things that you get for victory. This is really cool, like +2 permanent strength, time to sign, the Combo Master Fighting Arts. Fantastic. This is a fun fight, this one. This number's really exciting to go up against. Mad Steed. So this is a version of the antelope that is allegedly trained by the hand, hence it having the King's aura. It also has Berserker from the Butcher, which is like, yeah, this is no slouch, and even it has more accuracy and it's a little bit harder to critically wound, and it doesn't have the auto death, which is it's really this in particular. I love this victory condition. It's really sweet. Again, a fantastic fight. Really exciting and difficult and challenging. Depending on your gear, if you're really geared, you might have an easy time. But because it is at the end of the day still an antelope. But it is an antelope that it's got Crush and Devour in its list. Once every 6 turns. At some point during those, is going to Crush and Devour you. And then we got the Golden-Eyed King of 1,000 Years, which is astoundingly, it's a level 5. It's got 25 health, It gets Berserker, it gets a Weak Spot, which I thought was really cool, and also gets Golden Eyes on top of everything else. This is actually a Phoenix. This is my favourite Phoenix to fight. This selection here of cards is so it is challenging in a super fun way, and I really love fighting this thing. The reward as well is so insanely fun. You get 1,000 insanity and the King of 1,000 Battles secret fighting art, which is just, it is. These are all good fights. I really wish that Team Death in Campaigns of Death give us a whole bunch more of legendary monsters of the various different types that they've released to date, because these are fun, and if you get the chance to experience them and you feel confident for going for it, do so, because it is a nice showcase of what can be done with the system without having to make new cards, but just use old cards in different manners. Okay, let's get back to the Mask Maker then, shall we? Up here. Right. It is summary time. I'm not going to show you any builds because, to be honest, there's no specific builds I would really want to use any of these masks in. As I said, the Antelope Mask is the one that gets closest to being a specific kind of playstyle, where I'll use it with a bow, and I think it's great with Dancer Armour. But on the whole, these are fun, but none of them are like gear grid defining by themselves, with the exception of maybe the Antelope Mask, and the Death Mask obviously removing affinities. Anyhow, so you will unlock this by defeating the Butcher. In order to increase your chances of getting it, you want to Deathblow the Butcher. You can secure a Deathblow against the Butcher a little bit more often by using hit location scouting manipulation in order to ensure that the Deathblow is lined up with a Founding Stone or something else that has a high chance of critting. You can also get a mask via the Mask Maker, who you can summon via Legend Caller once a timeline if you've picked the relevant conviction, which is Romantic, if I remember correctly. When it comes to crafting the masks, the best masks are, in my opinion, the Antelope Mask, the Death Mask, and the God Mask. But you will probably want to craft the White Lion Mask and the Phoenix Mask because the legendary fights are really good. They're really enjoyable. And ultimately, this settlement location is a part of the reason why I rate the Butcher so highly. The Butcher is one of the best Nemesis monsters in the game, and this is a piece of that puzzle. So, that's everything on the Mask Maker. Thank you very much for watching, and while you're out there in the darkness, maybe, you might hear a friendly voice call out and offer you one of these in exchange for nothing much. Maybe a piece of gear. Maybe all he wants is your name. But either way,